All right, let's dive into a really big what if. A world without the internet. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But what would that world actually be like? I mean, just think about it for a second. Right now, you're experiencing this, well, online. The words you're hearing, the visuals on your screen, it's all coming to you through the internet. It's so deeply woven into our lives that we barely even notice it anymore. It's kind of invisible. And it connects pretty much every part of our lives. How we work, how we keep up with friends, how we shop. This massive global network is the foundation for almost everything we do every single day. Okay, so let's try to peel back all those layers. What if that initial spark, that idea for the internet just never happened? What kind of alternate reality would we be waking up to this morning? So, to really understand what we'd be missing, we first have to appreciate what we actually have. Let's kick things off by looking at the internet's role in our world right now. You know, it's really not just a tool, is it? It's more like the central nervous system of our entire civilization. It's the hidden wiring that lets everything, from our homes to our governments, talk to each other and work together, instantly. And this whole thing didn't just pop into existence. It started way back in the 60s with something called ARPANET, a military project. Then, in the 70s, we got TCP/IP. Think of it as a universal translator that let all the different computers speak the same language. That was the basic internet. But the real game changer for most of us came in the late 80s when Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web. He built it on top of the internet, giving us websites, links, all the stuff we actually use. And then, boom, the 90s hit and it just exploded. Okay, so imagine we just wiped that whole history clean. What would have stepped in to fill that void? How on earth would we all talk to each other? Let's go down that alternate path and see. Now, it's not like we'd be living in caves. We'd still have technology. Things like the telegraph, the telephone, the radio, they all would have kept getting better. But the real star of the show in this alternate reality would probably be satellites. They were already getting their commercial start way back in 1965. So, instead of the decentralized web we have now, where everyone can connect to everyone, we'd likely have a much more centralized, top-down kind of system. Think massive satellite networks just beaming telephone calls and TV shows around the globe. We'd still be connected, for sure, but wow, in a totally different way. And the biggest, most jarring difference? The speed, or the lack of it. Today, it's all instant, right? Without the internet, the entire pace of life would just slow down. Sending a message across the world would mean using snail mail, which takes days, maybe weeks. If you were in a real hurry, you might send a fax or a telegram. That immediate global conversation we all take for granted, yeah, that would be gone completely. And this massive slowdown in communication would have a huge ripple effect across the entire economy. So let's take a look at what the business world would be like. I mean, so many things we rely on would just not be there. Online shopping? Nope. So no Amazon. Digital banking? Forget it. The idea of remote work on a massive scale? Absolutely impossible. Marketing would be stuck with newspapers, radio, and TV. And those giant tech companies that basically define our world, like Google, they never would have even existed. There's this quote from someone who actually remembers what it was like back then, and it just hits the nail on the head. It wasn't that life was worse, not at all, but it just moved to a completely different beat. Everything from daily life to business had this more deliberate pace, definitely less frantic. But this change of pace, it probably has its biggest impact on what might be the most important thing we have, knowledge. How we access it, how we share it, and how we use it to build something new. And this really highlights that huge shift from physical things to digital information. Without the internet, finding knowledge meant going somewhere. You had to go to a library, pull an encyclopedia off the shelf. It was a destination. But with the internet, knowledge is just everywhere. It's in your pocket, accessible in seconds. It's a total game changer. And that has some truly massive consequences. You know, as this quote gets at, science doesn't happen in a vacuum. Real progress comes from researchers all over the world sharing their ideas and building on each other's work. So when that communication is crawling along, when you have to wait for printed journals to arrive in the mail, the whole engine of scientific discovery just sputters and slows right down.
So, what's the real cost of that slowdown? I mean, it's impossible to know for sure, but some folks have estimated that our technological progress could be set back by as much as 30 years. 30 years, just think about that. So many of the huge leaps we've seen in medicine and AI are supercharged by that instant global collaboration. Without the internet, we'd literally be living in a world that's decades behind where we are now.
Okay, so all of this brings us to the big idea here, and maybe the most important takeaway of all. The internet isn't just a bunch of gadgets and websites. It's something much, much deeper than that. You see, the sociologist Manuel Castells made a really powerful point. He argued that the most important thing about the internet isn't the stuff on it, not the emails or the videos. The most important thing is the network itself. The fact that we are all connected in this way has completely rewired how our society works. And really, that's the bottom line. A world without the internet isn't just a slower, more analog version of our own. It's not just less convenient. It would be a world where working together on a global scale is incredibly difficult, where information is locked away in silos. It would be a world where the very scale of our ideas would be smaller. Kind of like a world without a global brain. So, I'll just leave you with this to think about. If you were living in that slower, more disconnected world, what's the one thing you'd miss the most? Maybe it's an idea you discovered, a connection you made with someone far away, or just a random piece of knowledge you stumbled upon. What would it be for you?